Johanna Blomster from the University of Oslo.
Okay, or yeah, I like to move around. So it's Blomster. Yeah. Okay, yes, hello. So my name is Johanna Blomster. I'm a PhD student at the University of Oslo in Norway. So traveled 20 hours to have 20 hours or 20 minutes of attention. So, well, anyways, so so I'm going to present, some results from an article that is under review, and it's titled "Moved by Observing the Love of Others, muta evoked through media foster humanization of outgroups." So the reason why I became interested in media and how that can affect outgroup attitudes was mainly through a series in Norway called Scum, if any one of you have heard about that. So it's a series that portrays minority groups in Oslo in very moving ways. So for example, there was one season which had the focus on Sana, the female protagonist or character over here, a Muslim woman, and how she overcame like obstacles such as overcoming stereotypes and also falling in love with the male protagonist over there. And these video clips were posted online so people could comment on them. And in one comment, it was written in Norwegian, but I translated it roughly. So it says, last but not least, dear Sana, so the female protagonist, thank you for your season and your wonderful wisdom. Thanks to you, I have a new perspective on it. Islam, I really feel lucky to be able to experience your point of view. This was an enrichment that society really needed. We are all just human. Thank you for everything. So that made me think, okay, is there a way for mediated contact which evokes some type of emotion, if that can have an effect on outgroup humanization? So my research question was that can feeling moved, so muta, from watching outgroup members suddenly becoming closer, increase outgroup humanization? So your first question is probably, what is muta? So it is our conceptualization of being moved, and we decided to use a word from a dead language to denote our concept in order to prevent people's connotations of English vernacular into our concept. So because there are loads of theories on being moved, but it might be that you think that, oh, okay, so being moved is something that is negative, that, you know, you're sad or something like that, but our conceptualization of being moved is something that is primarily positive. And also we have other components that we argue are important for feeling muta. So the first component is that usually when muta is strongly evoked, it has some specific physiological signs such as tears, goosebumps, warm chest, and then you often have a hand to your heart when you feel muta. And of course, people don't know muta, so they don't say, oh, I feel muta. Or so of course there's labels, English vernacular labels, or labels in other languages, and in English it's usually denoted by touch, move, and heartwarming. But in other contexts it can be, for example, feeling like God's love if you feel muta in a religious setting, for example. So, but these are the most often used vernacular labels. And then most importantly, for my context at least, is that the appraisal of muta is that it is evoked by a sudden increase in a communal sharing relationship, which I will come back to later. And also that after you felt muta, it motivates you to intensify a communal sharing relationship, either with the person who evoked muta with you or with another person. So communal sharing relationships. So communal or CS relationships are taken from Alan Fisk's relational models theory, where he argues that there's four basic types of relationships. So communal sharing being one of them. And communal sharing relationships are therefore characterized by that the persons are socially equivalent, which orients their actions to something they have in common. So usually in-group members quite often have communal sharing relationships. And this then leads to kindness, sharing of resources, and unity. And people are often seen as human if they belong to a community whose core tenets include mutual care, respect, and sharing of resources and unity. And here you then see that these two, so communal sharing relationships and also what you consider as being human is very overlapping. So therefore I thought, okay, so if you see outgroup members that you might dehumanize to some extent, if that leads to you to see them as more human. So seeing these outgroup members intensifying their communal sharing relationships, therefore showing human characteristics, whether that then leads to humanization of these outgroups. So that's my prediction. So when feeling kama muta from watching protagonists suddenly intensifying their communal sharing relationships, the protagonists and the groups they represent will be humanized. So I measured both the protagonist and group humanization. And in order to test this, I showed participants kama muta videos. So these videos were, for example, videos where one person proposed to another, or reunion videos. And also I had a control condition, which was amusing videos. So I used amusing videos because those also evoke positive affect, but it's not, so it evokes positive affect, but not in a, how can I call it, a meaningful way. You don't feel like any kind of strong, long-term affect. It's more just not having negative affect often. And then because it's outgroup members I'm interested in, so based on the sample that I used, the outgroup members were gay protagonists and also Black protagonists or Black American protagonists. And it was a within subject design, so participants saw one kama muta and one amusing video, and they either saw a kama muta video about gay protagonists, an amusing video about Black protagonists, or vice versa. And also I had a longitudinal design, so time 1 and time 2. So at the first time point, the participants only saw 10 seconds of the video, and then we measured protagonist humanization. This was in order to, for them to have some kind of like viewpoint on this protagonist humanization measure, because it would be strange to ask about to what extent do you see this character as human, and then they're like, well, which character? So we showed 10 seconds of the video so that they could answer these questions. And then 1 week later, we showed them the whole video, so the video where actually the whole like emotional event took place, and then measured protagonist humanization again, and the emotions evoked. And at both time points, we measured group dehumanization at the end of the survey. So I'll just quickly go through the measures. So protagonist humanization was something that we developed ourselves, because in the literature, there's mostly dehumanization measures. And we were interested in humanization, and I spent like so long time just thinking, okay, is dehumanization the same as humanization? And yeah, I came to the conclusion that it's best to have a measure of humanization in order to see if these actually are similar constructs. So then I also measured group dehumanization. So it's from Kitali et al., which is somewhat quite blatant measure of group dehumanization. So as to what extent they see the group. So in this case, it would be either gay protagonists or gay Americans or Black Americans, to what extent they were seen as savage, aggressive, or backward, primitive, etc. And then kama muta was measured through 3 subcomponents, so physiological signs, appraisals, and labels. And the same was for amusement. And then over to the results. So first of all, manipulation check. And as you see here, we had white, straight US American participants from prolific academic. And the nice thing about prolific academic, you can choose which subsample or which sample you want to select. So I was yeah, so I only selected white straight participants, and also asked in my questionnaire their ethnicity and sexual orientation to double check if they were consistent in their race and sexual orientation. And 221 participants and quite a wide age range. So here you see that the Muta videos evoked most Muta labels and signs and also appraisals, whereas in the amusing videos, there was higher ratings on amusement label and signs and amusement appraisal. And here you see the difference in protagonist humanization between time 1 and time 2. So the red line over here is for the mean at when there's a mean rating of Muta labels and signs, and the star indicates that there's a significant increase from time 1 to time 2. And then also I included covariates, so at low Muta labels and signs and high Muta labels and signs. So you see here that the more Muta you actually felt, the more increase in protagonist humanization. So the increase was significant for high Muta labels and signs. So there's a mediation effect of Muta feelings on protagonist humanization increase from time 1 to time 2. Quite interestingly, for amusing videos, that was not expected, was that, so there was an overall direct effect of decrease in protagonist humanization between time 1 and time 2 for the amusing videos, and for participants that didn't find the videos amusing at all, then the decrease in protagonist humanization was quite massive. It might be that, yeah, that there's like this kind of backlash effect that they didn't find the humor funny at all and stuff like that. And I've talked to some communications people, and they say that evoking amusement is very difficult. So it might be that it wasn't amusing enough. So, and then over to the group dehumanization. So at the group level, so here you see that there's no direct effect of group dehumanization between time 1 and time 2 for either Muta or amusing videos. But I then looked at, okay, is there a way, so did participants at all levels of protagonist humanization have the same level of group dehumanization? And as you see here, the more the protagonist was humanized for after the watching a Muta video, the less the group was dehumanized. And it was the most prominent for the Muta videos, as you see here in the amusing videos. It wasn't as prominent. So to conclude, when it comes to the protagonist humanization variable, when you watch outgroup members suddenly becoming closer, you increase protagonist humanization directly, and feeling Muta mediates this effect. While as for group dehumanization, is dependent on the level which protagonists are humanized, and this was most prominent for the Muta videos. So the take-home message is that yes, Muta can increase outgroup humanization, and outgroup members that interact in communal ways, so ways that increase CS intensification, exhibit human characteristics, and when responding emotionally to these types of videos by feeling Muta, these interactions, responding emotionally, then the protagonists are often humanized, which then fosters humanization of their respective groups. Thank you very much. And if you're interested in Muta, you can go to kamamutalab.org. Thank you.
Some question? We have time for one or two.
I was just interested in that the sort of unexpected result for the amusing kind of condition. I was wondering whether that might be to do with some systematic difference in the category salience between your Muta and your control benchmark condition. I'm just wondering whether that decrement in like a worsening of our group orientation might be just a classic kind of affect, incidental effect of positive kind, right? So there is a traditional work from the mood literature about positive emotions dissociated from group schema, triggering increases in bias, so that a kind of counterintuitive kind of effect. So that is just a comment more than perhaps a question. I wanted to ask, for me, like your narrative links a lot to the kind of process associated with compassionate love in Buddhist tradition. And your muta seems to be very much around very intimate relationships. And I was just interested in your thoughts about whether you might be able to generate a muta kind of responses around experiences, more around the empathic experience of suffering of others, whether that kind of emotion could be also in those contexts. I'll give you the
Yeah, so yeah, responding to the compassion part. So when we first started designing these experiments, we thought about, okay, maybe evoking muta through, for example, the refugee crisis, where you see that the refugees are in a horrible situation. But then it was very difficult to very clearly conceptualize that in this kind of a communal sharing framework. So it might be that, yeah, that you feel compassion for it, but you don't feel closer to the protagonist. So then in a way it might be a bit different. So that's why we focus mainly on interactions between two outgroup members suddenly becoming closer. So we didn't want to, for example, include videos where like one in-group, one out-group member suddenly becoming closer, because that might be a bit difficult conceptually for us to wrap our heads around. But that's absolutely a next study that we should do. Yeah, thank you.
What is interesting? Sorry. No, I think it's interesting because it links a lot with a lot of the things we do, right? So in some respect, I wonder whether there might be a valence asymmetry in the sense, like with our group, it might be easier to feel the same, or they fall in love like we do. Whereas in the suffering side of the domain, especially when the life condition might be quite dramatically different from the observer, the generation of that feeling of shared humanity might be harder to instigate. And I wonder, yeah, so in some respect, whether this is actually a soft spot where we can, generate a fair amount of change more than we normally think. So I think it's a very exciting kind of way of thinking. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? Well, yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you.